today I'm doing a flip through, which means I have finished the entire sketchbook. So this sketchbook is the Khadi Papers. It doesn't say on it what thickness of the paper it is, but it is feeling a lot thinner than the one I'm using for my swatches. One second, I'll just pull it out. So this one here, this is a hardcover, and I have been getting on with it very, very well. I am also actually coming quite close to the end of it, so I need to do a few more swatch pages, I realized. But basically I have a few pages left. So yeah, this particular one has thicker paper and it's been more consistent, I felt. And because it's handmade paper, it has, however, like textural parts of the paper might not be exactly the same. So it could be, for instance, a little bit more textured on one part of the paper and less textured on the other. But that was the only thing, which I didn't mind. All of my swatches look great. This is, you can see these are ink pads, watercolors, anything from like even watercolor. I'd say pencils don't look that fantastic, but watercolors and inks are great. I don't think I have done acrylic swatches on here, but I'm pretty sure it would be fine because acrylic works beautifully on this paper and it's thinner, so it'd be fine. I have quite a few different formats of the Khadi paper sketchbook. One that is very long and it's got rough paper, which has even more texture. But yeah, so let's see. So this one that I just showed you is 210 GSM. So, and it's supposed to be smooth, although it is quite textured. This one I'd say is probably as smooth because texture is fairly similar. And actually flatter in some cases, but the paper is thinner. So whatever thickness of the paper this is, it's less than 210. I think it might be somewhere around 150 or less, something like that. I don't remember because I bought this a long time ago. Okay, so here we go. Let's start it. I started this book in April 2019, so it's not too bad. It's been about a year and a half since I finished it, so there we go. Here I have done some acrylic, no, not acrylic, the Distress inks by Daniel Smith. They work really beautifully, and things like pans worked well as well, crayons worked well. I will talk you through what didn't work as well. So here we go. I've done a bit of testing here as well. So this is clear gesso, no gesso, white gesso, a different, so this is Dina Beckley and a different white gesso, and then also acrylic inks, black gesso by Dina Beckley, and then just black acrylic paint. So just seeing how those work. Here I have a bit of white ink, which I used with a dip pen, going over watercolor. Watercolor looks quite beautiful on this sketchbook. Again, if you would swatch out on one part and use the same sort of watercolor in another part of the page, sometimes you could get a different effect. So it sort of has that inconsistency, but in general watercolors I find look beautiful on this paper. Although, like I said, if you're working with something granulating, sometimes it would granulate more, sometimes less. So if you do like consistency, possibly not, this journal possibly would not be recommendable. So what do we have here? Just, you know, working with different watercolor and brush marks, and again a bit of the white ink. So here I started running into problems. I decided to use one of my beloved drawing inks, which I believe this might be Oxblood, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, it's actually written here. Ancient Copper by Diamine. And I absolutely love the ink. I used it with a dip pen, which I believe was this one. And I started getting these weird featherings. So here you can see it's fine over here, it's fine over there. Here is more feathering, here is more feathering. So I didn't like that. That was the first thing that I came across, is the feathering of the ink. And I wasn't sure whether it was perhaps the nib scratching the paper texture and therefore the ink spreading, or whether it was just the sizing or no sizing of the paper itself that was creating that. Because, you know, I was using the same kind of pressure throughout, and it seemed that some of the areas were more feathering than the others. Then I started using acrylic, and I love acrylic on this paper. Gessos, acrylics, all that sort of thing just looks beautiful. I used the mix here of watercolor over acrylics, and yeah, I just love the texture, and I don't think acrylic can look bad on any paper, to be honest with you, unless it's sort of really thin thin paper that would buckle, but other than that, it's great for this. Also, it's great for collages. And then we have, again, you can see doing the same illustration here. This looks really pretty, and then I get this crazy feathering over here, and same thing here in the middle of the page, a lot of feathering here, which would look so much prettier if it didn't feather, like this illustration right here. So yeah, then I decided to give it a go and try out different nibs of the dip pens, and it was okay. Here's some feathering, and in general actually very crisp lines, so this paper did better by the looks of it. Then I pulled out Moorings, which is, this one is Diamine Still Blue, which is a turquoisey color, and then this is an old one I had from Dalaroni, I think, beautiful blue color, and that was that. Then we have some tulips. This is watercolor and pen. Again, just experimenting here. This one did well, this one did okay, and this one not so much, particularly here. So again, that sense of inconsistency, which was really a shame, because I felt like I had certain ideas that I wanted to just open up the journal and just kind of start working, and some things would work, sometimes would really get ruined, and if I had a different journal, it would have been a beautiful illustration. So for that matter, I wouldn't repurchase this. Maybe just for swatches, you know, just for like experimenting with mixing colors. It's a good size, it gives you enough space for bigger swatches. Acrylics I would be happy to use, but yeah, in general, sort of, you know, for using it for everything, would not recommend. So these were the things I had in mind to create these sort of face illustrations with flower arrangements, and that's what I was doing. So here's a great example how terrible this is looking. And also, mind you, I have noticed now quite a few times that Dr. P.H. Martin's has something in there which basically makes the page, yeah, so the page that you're painting, on the other side it would go yellow, even on the page after it's yellow, and here it's yellow. So not sure what it is in the watercolor, but I'm trying to figure out. So it's this color here that's making a lot of yellow, and that is Scarlet. So I'm not keen on that. This happened to me already in 2 different sketchbooks, and that was not a fun thing at all. So coming back to the feathering, you can see these would have been so cool as illustrations, but they got completely ruined. Look at the lip. This isn't me trying to create it like that. And the side of the hair here, and the feathering that goes almost 2 millimeters out of the line that I drew originally. This is extreme. So yeah, it's a shame that it sort of does that. Here you see a simple line and how it just terribly feathered. So you lose completely the detail. So there we go. Collages, like I said before, fantastic, especially with that matte medium. You know, from Tim Holtz or whichever one you can find. I think there's a good one by Liquitex that you can create this matte contemporary look. Then we have these illustrations here. Again, loads and loads of feathering. I was trying to combine ink with watercolor, completely ruined it. And same thing with these shells. I did a tutorial on that. And there's loads of feathering here as well, you can see. Okay, watercolor again is absolutely fine. Here I did a bit of textural play with a sponge. And things like pens, you know, that Muji Superfine 0.25, that works well. So I think this was it. A really fine line that didn't seem to feather. So yeah, pens seem to be okay. Well, some of them anyway. I haven't tried all of them. So this was a good one. This was a watercolor. This is actually my favorite illustration in the entire of the sketchbook, and I love it so much. I want to sort of do something with it in the future, take it to a different, to the next level maybe if I can. But yeah, anyway, so I have swatched out watercolor and then created a little bit of a wash, and on top of that I have used some polychroma pencils. And what else did I use here? That, I think it was the Muji fine tip pen, and it just looks so beautiful and fine and crisp, and yeah, was happy that that worked out well. Here we have the just a Technalis set swatched out. Wasn't loving it on this paper, the graphite. Here we have more of that problem with the feathering of the ink. I kept sort of pursuing it, thinking that maybe, you know, it was just 1 or 2 pages, but throughout the book it became very clear that it just is a problem. And here I have used some of that Stabila Oil. That seemed to work fine. Love this illustration, but again, shame that it's sort of feathered and lost its crisp lines. Watercolors again, absolutely fine. Here we have some a variety of things. So Neocolor 2, we have some Derwent graphite pencils, Derwent Inktense pencils, and they're not my favorite on this paper, like I said before. And then again, different things, swatching out a color palette. Watercolors, yeah, this looks good. So also you'll find whatever you get here, if you take it to another paper, it will work differently. Sometimes certain things look better on this paper, sometimes things look better on the other paper, but in general it's a good good paper to work on for watercolors. If you are ready for inconsistency. So here we have Tim Holtz Distress crayons. they seem to have worked okay. And then a flower illustration. Here I was playing, this is supposed to be an artichoke flower. So I was playing with that comb brush, which I have showed a couple of times. So it's great for creating these fine lines and patterns and all that. Sorry if the light keeps changing, sort of clouds coming in and out. And then this is the other thing that I really loved in the sketchbook, was the Daniel Smith watercolor grout and acrylics over it. So I mixed up and tinted the watercolor grout. I mixed it with, I think, some acrylic inks to tint it, and then over it I applied some acrylic paint. Here I played with acrylic paints and watercolors. Or actually, no, it was the acrylic inks and granulating medium, trying to kind of create something interesting there. And that's that. Again, watercolors are fine. Tim Holtz distress crayons, they look fine here. Watercolors and watercolor ground again with watercolors and inks. So here's a classic example. The ink was feathering again. Let me just pull it out. I loved the original bit, so how it was when I placed it on paper and how it would have been on another paper. Then it started feathering and it just lost that perfect point where I loved it. Same thing here. These are fine. These haven't feathered. This one hasn't feathered. This has feathered. That one has feathered. So it's a little bit peculiar how it works. Then this one was again watercolor ground with acrylic inks and watercolor and some pencils, I believe. Yeah, the Caran pencils. Pencils, I'm not too keen on this paper, unless like here when it sort of goes maybe over the acrylic, and I think this might have been actually the nail color 2 or 1, this one. So love this, love the gold acrylics. Again, this was over, and some watercolors. This is actually quite beautiful. I'll give you a little close up here. Yeah, love how the texture of the paper came through in this area and this area here. So yeah, so basically what was it? The acrylic inks, the watercolor ground, the watercolors and acrylics work beautifully. So if this is the frame you're working in, then, you know, go ahead. This sketchbook would be good for you. But if you want to also dip your toes into other mediums, you would really kind of have a hit and a miss and find it quite annoying that you would have to then go ahead and swap to a different journal to repeat the same piece of work to get to the effect that you desire. And some more of the Tim Holtz distress crayons, acrylics, all that kind of stuff, and I think some watercolor maybe. And then, so those are the big swatches of my handmade watercolors that I can't show you just in this video. And then there's the Viridian mixes with different colors, and then more watercolor here. And then these two are acrylic inks. So this is the Amsterdam Birn Sienna and Daleroni Birn Sienna, and it's quite interesting how different they behave, but I think it's the inks rather than the paper So you can see that this one, the Alyona, has a bit of a sheen to it, which I really like. It has that faux leather effect, and this one is actually quite difficult to work with. It stains the paper and the mark kind of stays there permanently, and it's a matte, so it doesn't have that sheen to it. And then we have some more here. This is acrylic ink, sorry, just the acrylic paint by Sennelier. These two colors and a mix of them two together. This is Faber-Castell pencils and the Polychromos and Goldfaber Aqua. Like I said, not too keen on using pencils on this paper at all. Blending isn't great, if you wonder why, and the pigment just does not look great either. It doesn't have that smoothness of it. And then here's some masking tape, which I tried. Again, masking tape I don't recommend using here because it rips the paper very easily. Then we have Gansai Tambi swatches. Here, some play on the colors. These were sent to me by Irid. You've seen it in a video. Again, watercolors. You've seen these pages in my videos as well. Beautiful mixes. I'll try to link everything up in the cards what I can. Again, similar thing to what you've seen before with the watercolor grout in the acrylics and all of that. More watercolors and granulation medium, Mars black and some of the green mixes. And here is my autumn palette, which you have seen as well. These are some colors I wrote down. These are some of the mixes from my autumn palette that I absolutely love. These are the swatch out of the palette. There's a video for these two, and there is a video for this last page, which is Daniel Smith Viridian mixes with my 6 kind of colors that are my favorite mixes, but also Tiger's Eye Genuine I would recommend as a 7th color. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching. See you soon.